All right, I might get started then. So welcome and thank you all for being here this evening for our webinar on Arts Mid-North Coast's Country Arts Support Program, which are currently open for applications. My name is Olivia and I'm the Executive Director at Arts Mid-North Coast. I also have with me Sky Petho, who is our Program Coordinator and here for tech support. Hopefully we won't need tech support and everything's going to work smoothly for us this evening. And before I begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are all meeting on unceded Aboriginal lands, and I'm beaming in to you all from beautiful Gumbaynggirr country here in the Nambucca, and acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional custodians who have looked after this country for millennia, and extend those respects on to the traditional custodians of the lands on which you are all on this evening. Please feel free, if you would like to make an acknowledgement of country, please feel free to do so in the chats. Now, yes, unfortunately, I can't see your lovely faces as this is a webinar and we have quite a few people that have registered. But if you have any questions at all at any time during the presentation, please pop them into the chats and I will try and answer as many questions as I can at the end of the presentation. And I would like to also let you know that this webinar is being recorded and it will be shared onto our networks and also to those who weren't able to attend this evening, and will be published on our website as well. So I might start off with just sharing with you my screen. Bear with me. So our Country Arts Support Program, or CASP as we like to call it. So a little bit of background about our organisation, Arts Mid-North Coast. We are a regional arts development organisation, or RADO as we like to call ourselves. We are part of a network of 15 RADOs across the state, and we're supported by the New South Wales Government through Create New South Wales and also our local council members. We support and deliver projects that provide opportunities for regional artists and creative industry development, projects and programs that encourage community participation in the arts and engagement in the arts, and also programs that raise awareness of the region's creativity and culture. Arts Mid-North Coast services across 5 LGAs, from Port Macquarie in the south up to Coffs Harbour in the north. If you would like to know more about the kinds of projects and programs that we deliver, please hop onto our website at artsmidnorthcoast.com. You'll also find a free events calendar that everyone's welcome to upload their exhibitions and events to, and we share that off widely to our networks. We also have directory listings, news and opportunities that we publish regularly. And we also encourage you to sign up for our monthly Arts Blast newsletter as well. So that's a little bit about who we are and what we do. And we'll get into the Country Arts Support Program. So Country Arts Support Program, or CASP, again, currently opened. It closes on the 31st of May. This is an annual small grants program that the RADOs administer on behalf of Create New South Wales. And they are for locally led arts and community projects in regional New South Wales. And for Arts Mid-North Coast, the small grants available are from $500 up to $2,000, and they are for projects starting after the 1st of July, and they must be completed and delivered by the 28th of February in next year. So some of the images that you'll see in this presentation are from previous CASP projects that we funded, just to give you a bit of an idea of the kinds of activities that can be supported through this program. So this one here was a project by artists Alfira O'Sullivan and Elaine Carmody at Stewart's Point, and they delivered a public art project with their local community, and also resulted in a performance and event at the end of their program. So what are we looking for to fund through CASP? So these are the objectives of the CASP grants. We want to see projects that assist local community arts and cultural activities. So projects that are led and born out of the local community. We're looking for projects that enable communities to explore and express their cultural identities, projects that bring social and economic benefits, so whether that's through skills development, employment of artists and community, and engagement of local businesses, and also promotional opportunities for local arts and culture. We want to see opportunities for regional groups to access a diverse range of arts programs and projects that lead to greater awareness and appreciation of the cultural diversity that can be found in the regions. We also want to be able to support regionally based community arts organisations and help them increase their sustainability and resilience. So when you're thinking about your project, and this is for any grant that you're potentially applying for, get really familiar with the objectives of that grant and that program, and think about how your project is going to deliver on those objectives. And that will really help you determine whether this is the right grant for your project, and also help you with when you're writing the application. So in a nutshell, we are looking for projects that are led by local artists or community groups and cultural organisations that involve local engagement and participation in arts and cultural experiences. So that's it in a nutshell. So think about whether if you've got a project, whether that involves local artists and local communities. So who can apply for these grants? So you'll need to have an ABN and public liability insurance to be able to apply for the grant. So you can either do this as an individual if you're a sole trader that has your own ABN and your own insurance. If you're a group, for example, if you're a choir and you would like to apply for the grant, you can apply either through one of the members of your choir who's got an ABN and insurance that is happy to apply on your behalf, or you can approach an organisation to auspice the grant for you. So some organisations like your local arts council or your neighbourhood centre may be able to provide this service for you. Some may or may not charge a fee for this. So yeah, something that you'll just need to approach those community organisations and see if that's something that they can do. Not-for-profits and Aboriginal corporations are also welcome to apply. Your project and the applicant must be based or have an outcome in one or more of our regions. So, for example, if you're applying to go overseas for a residency or a competition, then this isn't the right grant for that activity. You might need to look at other sources of funding, because we want to see outcomes for our local communities through this grant program. What you can apply for. So your project has to include some kind of art in the program. So we are being a little bit prescriptive about what art is, as this is funding that is devolved from Create New South Wales, which is the state arts funding body. It has to fit into an art form that they support. So unfortunately, things like culinary arts or making beeswax wraps or bicycle maintenance doesn't really fit into this definition of what art is. And fortunately, we can't get too philosophical about that in this program. So First Nations arts, which can be a diverse range of art forms in there. Visual arts and craft can also include fashion, design, textiles, art, jewelry making, music across different genres, dance, theatre, literature, digital and screen, which also includes games development. So if you're doing a project that involves games development, that is eligible. Museums and heritage, or multi-arts. So if you're applying for a festival, for example, with multiple art forms involved, then you will apply as multi-arts in your application. So the types of activities that we've funded through CASP include workshops, arts activities that are part of a bigger event. So in my first slide, it was an image of the Zany Zany street band. This was a CASP project that we funded as part of the Taranto Festival. So they just applied for specifically for the street band component of the festival. Artists in residency programs, we funded those programs previously, as well as public art projects, performances, community seminars and forums. Again, they need to have an art focus in those seminars and forums, exhibitions, and other local arts initiatives. When you go through the guidelines for CASP and through the application form, you will see a list of things that you can't apply for. So things like core equipment. So for example, if you are a ceramics group and you're looking to buy a new kiln, so that's considered a core equipment. Or if you're a musician and you want to buy yourself a fancy new guitar. Unfortunately, we can't support those kinds of activities through this grant. However, if you need to, say, you're running a ceramics workshop and need to purchase consumable art materials as part of that program, so if you need to buy clay, for example, then yes, you can apply for art materials, so materials that will be used as part of that project. Capital and building expenses. So if you need to paint your studio or gallery, unfortunately, you can't apply for to be able to do that. Fundraising and donations, prize money. We often do get requests for prize money. Unfortunately, grants cannot be used for prize money. Applicants who have already received Create New South Wales or other funding. So this also includes activities where you are redeeming Creative Kids vouchers. So because the Creative Kids vouchers are also administered through Create New South Wales, it will be deemed that you are already receiving funding from that same grant body. So you can't apply for the grant and also use your Creative Kids vouchers. Loan repayments, so we can't help with any credit card debts or mortgages, as well as your operating expenses if you've got to pay for electricity or ongoing rents. You can apply to a hire fee for a venue if you are hiring a venue for that event. However, any ongoing rents, you won't be able to apply for that. Projects that have already commenced. So these are for projects starting after 1st of July. If you have already started to incur costs for your project, so if you've already purchased materials or if you've already booked travel or accommodation for an artist, we can't reimburse you for any costs that have already been incurred. Activities as part of a course or school curriculum. So if you're enrolled in any kind of formal education, for example, you need to do a residency, you need some travel money, because that activity is part of a formal course, you can't apply for this grant for that. And with the school curriculum, this also includes activities that are being delivered that aren't technically part of the curriculum. However, if they is an activity that is only being delivered in that one school during school hours and only available to students of that school, you won't be eligible for the grant. The grant the program wants to see access and participation by the broader community. If at any time, if there is anything that you aren't quite clear about, please feel free to just call or send me an email, and I'm happy to talk you through your application. So when we are assessing your applications, they are assessed by representatives of the Arts Mid North Coast Board. We don't publish who they are, just out of privacy reasons, but they are from members of the panel. Will be looking at 3 assessment criteria when they look at the applications. They'll be looking at the merit, the impact, and the viability of your project. So when we look at the merit of your application, we'll be looking at the caliber of the artists involved and their experience and the quality of their work, whether they've done this kind of thing before. We'll be looking at cultural outcomes. So are there new artworks being created? Is there new knowledge and understanding that's being shared with the community? We'll be looking at the diversity of expressions that are from your project, and also the innovation. So is this something new? Is this a new project that hasn't been happening before? Or is this a regular program that's already being delivered in the community? So for example, if you've been running regular paint and sip workshops, and you're looking to apply for this grant to subsidise some of those costs, it won't be as competitive as another application that could be a brand new project, such as activating a space or putting on a local community event, for example. The impact of your project, we will be looking at the level of engagement by the community, whether as participants or audiences in your project. We'll be looking at the extent, the consultation that you've done with your community and the level of support that you have. So this is where those letters of support really come to the fore with your application. That will help strengthen your application. Have you got confirmation from the artists that are involved? Have you got confirmation from the venue? If you're working with a community group, is there someone from that community group that can provide you with evidence that, yes, they want to be part of your project and they're excited about it and they're keen to be involved? The viability of your project. So how well planned is your project? Have you got a good understanding of what's involved in the delivery of the project? Is it doable with the resources that you have available? Is your budget adequate? Is there enough there? And is it realistic? Are artists being paid at industry rates? This is really important for both Create New South Wales and Arts Mid North Coast. We want to make sure, we want to see artists are being properly remunerated for the work that they do. So there are ways that you can ensure that you are paying them correctly, whether that's through a direct quote from the artist, or you can use things like the NAVA rates of pay, which is the National Association for Visual Arts. They have a code of practice with recommended rates of pay for visual artists and arts workers. Or you can use something like the Live Performance Award for musicians and performers. They also have a recommended rates of pay. Or if you're working with musicians, the Musicians Union also has, and I believe it's legislated if you are using government money to pay for musicians, there's a minimum rate of pay of $250 for their engagement. And then we also look at the experience and the capacity of the applicant, whether they've delivered projects like this before and are they likely to be able to deliver this project again successfully. So that is the information about the CASP grants. I will be through the next half hour. Hopefully we'll have a bit of time to answer your questions. I will go through the actual application form for CASP to help you familiarise with the kinds of questions that you're going to be asked. So before we go into the application itself, just a few grant writing tips. And these are things that I always, whenever I have someone call me up or send me an email, they've got a project in mind and they're looking for a grant, I first ask them to send me a one-pager on the who, what, when, where, how, and why. So this will really help you when you're trying to put your thoughts down into the planning of your project and into when you actually write the application form, because these are exactly the questions that you're going to be asked. So who's doing the project? Who else is involved as well as yourself? Are there any other partners involved, community groups, artists? What do you want to do? What are you doing? When are you doing it? Where are you doing it? How are you doing it? So that's the project planning. So breaking your project up into steps. I usually start with the final outcome and work backwards and thinking about how long it's going to take me to do each thing, each part of the process. And why are you doing it? So this is probably the question where it gets a little bit more complex. So why are you doing it? Why is it important? Why should your project be funded and not anyone else's? So a good way to answer this question is to go back to the objectives of the grant. If your project is fulfilling any of those objectives, then it's a good place to start about why you're doing it. So I'm just going to flick back to the CASP objectives. So these are the objectives of CASP. These are the kinds of outcomes that we want to see. And so if you're thinking about the why of your project, ask yourself, well, is it meeting this? And why is it important? Why is it important to bring social and economic benefits to the community? And have a think of it that way. It's a good place to start thinking about the outcomes of your project. Start gathering your support letters early in the planning. So this, I can't stress this enough, because quite often we will get a flurry of requests for letters of support for a grant that's closing tomorrow, for example, or today, this afternoon. We need to have, and anyone that you are trying to get these letters of support, if you can give them ample time to be able to draft those letters and also to develop a good understanding of your project. If you can start that process right at the beginning and get your partners involved at the start. Support letters really strengthen your application because they show us how much consultation and how much support you have from your community. Putting your budget together. So start by thinking about the materials and the things you're going to need, so you can get quotes for materials, venue, hire fees, your artist fees, anything like catering or marketing costs that are going to be involved in your project. Also, think about other sources of income that you can include. So with CASP, it's a very small grant. We know that it's not going to cover everybody's costs. So think about other things like ticket sales, or whether you're going to sell any art, or if you've got donations, you might have a gold coin donation to your event. You can also include in-kind support, so that's non-cash income that you might be able to access. For example, council might be able to provide you with a venue space for free, or you've got volunteers that can do the catering for you. You can put a value amount to those volunteer hours, and the CASP application actually calculates that for you automatically. But there is a value that you can put against volunteer hours, and I believe it's currently at $43.27 according to the peak body for volunteers. So if your application includes that you've got other kinds of support, and you can also include support directly from the applicant as well. If you've got cash or in-kind contributions as well from yourself, you can include that. It will make your application more competitive if we can see that you've thought about other ways of funding your project. So I might just stop sharing the slides, because I'm going to try and answer some of your questions in the chat. And I have to go back. Oh, thank you, Sky's been answering some of those. So yes, the NAVA rates are available at NAVA website. Rate for performances, so that's the live performance award. So if you Google live performance award, it should come up, and it's from the government website that will list what the minimum rates of pay are for performers and musicians as well. Charging for fees or for performances, yes. So you can ticket your event, so that's perfectly fine. You can you can do a gold coin donation. So yes, you can do that. Is it possible to apply for more than one CASP grant? Unfortunately, no. You can, where it's only one application per applicant. Sorry about that. There we go. Sky's got the Live Performance Award link there from Fair Work. Great. If any other questions come up later on, please, my contact details are all through the application form and also on our website. So please just give me a call or send me an email, and I'm very happy to talk through your application with you. So I might now just share my screen for the actual application form, and we'll just go through that so you can get to know what it looks like and what you're going to be asked. So I'll just share again. And hopefully you can see my screen. Are you able to put your mic on and just let me know if you're all looking at the right thing? It looks like you can all see the application form. Okay, so you will need a Smarty Grants login. So if you haven't got a Smarty Grants account, you will need to set one up so that you can fill out the online application form. Just put this on full screen. Okay. Oh, sorry. There we go. So it'll go through a whole lot of information that I've kind of already talked about what eligibility guidelines, what it will and will not fund. It'll ask you which LGA you're applying from. Applicant type, so whether you're applying as an individual or as a group or as an organization. And then it'll ask you for your ABN, whether you have an ABN or you're looking to have the funding administered by another organisation. So where it says unable to continue, it just depends which box you tick and it'll take you to another section. So this is just a PDF of the application form. Oh, excuse me, sorry. So now I'll ask you for the applicant details, your contact details, your address. If you're an organisation, it'll ask you for the legal status of your organisation, whether you're a not-for-profit or a cooperative or other. And then a short description about your organisation and examples of similar projects you've done. Just as a little tip, when you're filling out these boxes and there's a word count, so this one, for example, says 500 words, please try and type as close as you can to those 500 words, just to give the assessors a really good understanding of your project, who you are and what you want to do. So one-liners can kind of pretty minimal description for us to really understand your application. So on saying that, if you are more comfortable with talking or speaking to your project versus writing about your project, you can do a video response to any of these questions. So you'll have to, if you record yourself answering the questions, you'll just have to include a URL link, could be a Dropbox link or a private YouTube account, so that we can access those video responses. So when you enter your ABN details, it will automatically pull up that information from the Australian Business Register to make sure that you've entered those details correctly. You'll then need to upload your public liability insurance, and then it'll ask you for your contact details again, and whether you've applied for this program before. That's really just for statistical reasons. It's not going to affect your application if you have or have not. We're just collecting that purely for information purposes. If you have nominated another organisation to auspice your grant for you, this is where you will need to put in their details. So you will need to make sure you've got their ABN details, a copy of their public liability insurance, and a signed letter from that organisation to confirm, yes, we are happy to auspice this grant for this applicant. And then you'll need to enter their details. It then goes into the section where you start talking about your project. So this is where that who, what, when, where, how, why Word document that you put together, your one pager, will come in really useful. So give yourself your project a title, a short title, and a brief description that includes the who, what, where, and when. So the brief description is what gets published. If your application is successful, this is what gets published on Create New South Wales website as well as our website, and goes into their records. So where is your project taking place? When is it taking place? And there is where you select the art form of your program. So it'll ask you to select the primary art form. So For example, if it's music, and then it'll ask you to select the secondary art form where you can specify whether it's contemporary music or choral music, etc. Does your project involve Aboriginal cultural elements, community, or heritage? Now, this is really important for anyone who is working with Aboriginal cultural elements, that they understand the New South Wales Aboriginal Arts and Cultural Protocol. So if you will need to provide letters of support from those relevant communities that you're working with, whether that's artists that you're engaging, whether it's organisations like your local land council, for example, and you'll need to refer to the protocols. So these protocols have been put in place to protect and respect Aboriginal cultural and heritage. So you'll need to be familiar with those protocols and outline how you plan to adhere to them. And then it will ask you to describe your project in more detail. So what are you doing and why are you doing it? Again, think about those objectives. What consultation has occurred? Have you got your letters of support? Have you talked to those community groups? Have you talked to those artists and secured the venue, etc.? How will the project be managed? So who's involved in the project? And include a plan and timeline. So that's where you'll be breaking down your project, and how I do it, I like to go backwards from the outcome and breaking it down so there's a start and end for each part of the project. So say you're in the planning stage, it'll go for 2 weeks. You're going to confirm artists, get the cake, order catering, and then your second week you'll be making your artwork, and then you've got your third week where you've got the exhibition and final outcome. So that's just a really kind of vague example of the timeline. Describe the short-term and long-term benefits of your project. This is always the part where I really have to have a good think about when I'm doing a grant application, about the short-term and long-term benefits. So some short-term benefits can include things like it brought the community together for this event. It brought the people together to learn a new skill. Long-term benefits can be, well, these people have learnt this new skill and it's now given them a pathway towards a new arts practice, for example. Or these people have been able to come to this event and they've developed long-term friendships and networks that will help them build their resilience and build their confidence in the community. So those are just some examples of short-term and long-term benefits. So it then moves into the project details. So who's involved in your project? Are there any other groups involved or organisations involved? How are they involved? And include those letters of support from these groups if you've got them. Again, this is statistical. It won't affect your application whether or not you've got heaps of paid artists or not. It asks you how many paid artists are there and how many unpaid artists are there. Does your project involve working with children? So if your project, if anyone is directly involved with children, they will need to supply their working with children check, and also a CV with their relevant experience working with young people. So this is the budget section. So where we start putting in numbers for your project. So it will ask you the total cost of your project. So when you've done your one pager in your planning and you start putting together how much everything's going to cost for your project, include both the cash and in-kind support. So this is the total cost. The next box is what you're asking for from CASP. So your whole project might cost $5,000, and then you're asking for $2,000 from CASP. And then it asks you about the income. So that's excluding the CASP amount. So if you've asked for 2,000 in there, you'll put in 3,000 in here to add up to the total cost of the project. It then asks you to list what those CASP funds are paying for. So it only asks what this amount is paying for. So how much of it is going to artist fees or arts workers fees? How much is going towards production, administration, and marketing? And then it'll add it up automatically, and this should equal this amount, which will make the funds allocation 0. So that's automatically calculated. If it doesn't equal 0, you'll just have to go back through your numbers and see where you've entered something incorrectly. And then it asks you to outline how you got those figures. So this is where your rates of pay would come in, or if you've got quotes from artists and caterers and that kind of thing. And then it asks you to list the in-kind support. So this is the non-cash items. So those volunteer hours, whether local government have provided you with something without a fee, whether you've been able to access local businesses with any services or materials, or whether any other community groups have contributed. And then it asks you for the support material. So this is really just for organisations. So for a financial report, so organisations will need to include preferably their audited financial statements or their latest statements. And if you are getting your grant auspice, it will ask for your funds administrators statements as well. Letters of support. So if you've ticked that box that says you are working with Aboriginal culture, you will need to include those letters of support from those communities. And then it asks you for samples of work that you've done in the past that can support your project. So this is where that criteria of artistic merit will come in, as well as viability of your project. So you can include written material or photographs, or you might have a video that you can include there. So you'll have to include the URL for that video and a short description. And that's the end of the application. So it's not a super hard one. It's a good one. It's a good starting one if you are thinking about applying for bigger grants. So we've got the Regional Arts Fund is coming up, I believe in August, and that's for $30,000. It uses a similar Smarty Arts grant application. It will ask for more things though, more questions. So the larger the grant there is, there will be more things that you will need to fill out. And yeah, so that's the answer. I will try and see if there's any more questions. Videos on Facebook, yes, you can, just as long as people don't need a password or anything. If there is a password needed, you'll just need to provide that password in that form. But yes, you can use Facebook social media links. And that's the end of our webinar. So I don't think there's any more questions. Guy, was there anything that you saw I might have missed? I've just put your mic on, Sky.
Awesome. Hey, Liv, there's just one there saying,
Hey.
can I attach multiple docs for insurance? I use a different provider for performance than I do for sculpture installation.
Yeah, I think that would, it would really just be the most relevant, I guess, for your project. So if you are doing a performance, then I would attach that one if it's for a sculpture installation, because there might be just some different components in your insurance that won't cover certain things. So say for sculpture installation, that might be a bit more of a risk involved. So yeah, it really depends what the focus of your project is. Performance in front of a sculpture.
There you go. That's the answer.
That's the answer. So I haven't had that one before. If you're installing the sculpture and that's what you're applying for, include that. And then I would say then you might just need to attach both. I kind of need to get a better understanding of the whole project. So that might be a phone call, Ray. Was there anything else, Sky, that I might have missed?
I don't think so. I think the rest of them I've been able to answer as we've gone through. Have I not answered anybody's question? No. Looks like we're good. You did well.
Yeah, yay. So thank you all. And I'm sorry we weren't able to switch on all your cameras and microphones. But please call me. My number is all on the forms, or you can see it on artsmidnorthcoast.com, or send me an email, and yeah, happy to chat. Great. So we might leave early because I can smell dinner. So have a good night, everyone, and I'll catch up with you next time.